Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Coco Gauff's impact echoes beyond courts as ATP star praises her for elevating women's sports. In the swirl of flashing cameras and a cacophony of cheers, Coco Gauff's ascent in tennis has become not just a story of youthful triumph, but a symbol of evolving power in women's sports. Her talent on court is undisputed. Grand Slam titles, ESPYs, and a growing trophy cabinet tell that tale well enough. But it was a recent moment off court, a subtle but stirring recognition from a leading star of men's tennis, that solidified her place in the broader conversation of sports history. At a post-match press conference following his quarterfinal win at the City Open, world number 3 and Olympic gold medalist Alexander Zverev paused before leaving the stage. The usual match analysis was complete, but Zverev, unprompted, decided to speak about someone else entirely. "I just want to say," he began, his voice more thoughtful than boastful, "Coco Gauff, she's doing incredible things. Not just on the court, which obviously everyone sees, but for women's sports as a whole. The way she speaks, the way she leads. It's inspiring, even for us guys." A quiet wave turns into a tide. For Coco, this wasn't about fame. She had that already. Nor was it about accolades. She just won another major and added to her decorated resume. This was about respect, and not just from fans, but from fellow elite athletes who understood the depth of her contribution. Zverev's words were soon echoed by others. Matteo Berrettini reposted the clip with a fist emoji and a simple, "Respect at Coco Gauff underpoints." Andy Murray tweeted, "Leadership looks like this," in response to a recent speech on gender equity in sports funding. It wasn't always this way. Back in 2019, when a 15-year-old Gauff exploded onto the scene with her Wimbledon debut against Venus Williams, she was seen as a prodigy. Wide-eyed. Exciting. The future. Yet as the years unfolded, Coco matured into something far rarer, an athlete who could fuse her game with a purpose. Whether advocating for racial justice, equal pay, or mental health awareness, Coco began shaping her career around more than points and prizes. By the time she was 20, she wasn't just a tennis star, she was a symbol. And now, her impact was being acknowledged on a global scale, and importantly, across gender divides. Coco's response, humble yet focused. When informed of Zverev's words during her own press briefing, Coco blushed, genuinely surprised. "I really appreciate that," she said, "especially coming from someone like Sasha. But honestly, I think this is bigger than me. I've just always wanted to play my best and use my voice where it matters." She continued, "If I can help a young girl somewhere believe in herself, whether it's in tennis, soccer, or even science, then that's the real win." But she didn't stop there. Coco revealed that she's in talks with the WTA and a coalition of male players, including some ATP stars, to create an annual Equality in Athletics Summit, a forum designed to promote equity and inclusion in all sports, featuring athletes, coaches, media, and policymakers. "I think men being allies is crucial," Coco said. "It's not about one side fighting the other. It's about progress, together." The bridge between two worlds. Coco Gauff is not the first woman to speak up, nor is she the first to dominate with grace. But the way she has managed to merge generations, genders, and continents is a phenomenon even tennis veterans marvel at. Martina Navratilova once noted, "There's something about Coco. It's a quiet fire. She speaks when it matters, and when she does, people listen. That's power." Meanwhile, men's tennis, long a separate echo chamber from the women's game, is beginning to bridge that gap. More and more, ATP players are not only watching but openly supporting WTA events. Part of that is market evolution. Another part? Coco Gauff. Nick Kyrgios, never one to shy away from opinion, stated bluntly during an Instagram Q&A. "Coco is the reason half the boys are watching WTA again. She's real. She's exciting. And she doesn't take crap." Coco's activism hasn't been loud in the traditional sense. No boycotts, no grandstanding. Instead, she's worn messages on her shoes. She's spoken thoughtfully on TV. and she's partnered with grassroots organizations rather than merely showing up for photo ops. She's even hosted tennis clinics in underserved communities during tournaments, sometimes without the media even knowing. And when she speaks of equality, she doesn't mean only gender. I want more black girls playing. I want more Latina girls. I want more indigenous girls. And I want the industry to care enough to make space for them. Serena's legacy, carried forward. Of course, the conversation is incomplete without invoking Serena Williams. The queen of modern tennis, Serena set the precedent for what it meant to be a dominant athlete and an advocate. In many ways, Coco is Serena's spiritual successor, not in play style, necessarily, but in spirit. She's continuing the work, Serena once said in a Vogue interview, and in her own voice. That's what I love about her. But Coco doesn't just look up. She looks around. I'm standing on the shoulders of a lot of women, Billie Jean King, Venus and Serena, Naomi Osaka too. But I also think it's time we build more shoulders. Make it so the next girls don't need to push as hard to be seen. The bigger picture, beyond tennis. Outside the tennis bubble, Coco's influence has reached new spheres. She was recently named to Time's list of Next 100 Leaders. She was invited to speak at the UN's International Day of the Girl Forum. Nike launched a line inspired by her campaign called She Sets the Pace, focused on empowering young women in sports. Her social media presence is careful, curated not for vanity, but for vision. She shares behind-the-scenes training but pairs it with affirmations, community shout-outs, and calls to action. I don't want to just go viral. I want to go meaningful. And now, even men's athletes, notoriously reserved about issues outside their sports, are standing beside her. Not just in press conferences, but in real support, retweets, collaborations, joint interviews, and participation in campaigns she spearheads. The next chapter, with the U.S. Open around the corner and Paris 2024 looming, Coco's calendar is packed. Her on-court ambitions remain as fierce as ever. She's gunning for another Grand Slam and an Olympic medal. But she's also finalizing a documentary with Netflix, not about her victories, but about her activism and the athletes changing the world quietly behind the scenes. The film will feature athletes from multiple disciplines, including Allyson Felix, Megan Rapinoe, and yes, Alexander Zverev. Asked if this kind of recognition adds pressure, Coco smiled. Pressure is a privilege. If people expect more from me, that means I'm in a position to do more. I'll take that every time. Final rally, why it matters. Coco Gauff's journey is no longer just a sports narrative. It's a cultural movement, a reminder that performance and purpose aren't mutually exclusive. They are, in fact, a powerful pairing. It wasn't during a match or a press conference, nor was it a formal awards show or media event. The moment came in the players' lounge of a prestigious tennis tournament, a place where sweat, strategy, and quiet contemplation usually filled the air. But on this particular afternoon, Alexander Zverev, the Olympic gold medalist and one of the most prominent figures in men's tennis, turned to the gathered journalists and players and said something unexpected. You know, Coco Gauff is doing more for women's sports than many people realize. And that deserves more than applause. It deserves recognition. The statement rippled through the tennis world like a sudden, cross-court winner. In a sport often divided by gender, Zverev's words bridged the gap. And at the center of it all stood Coco Gauff, only 20 years old, but already a symbol of power, resilience, and change. A rising star on the court and off it. Coco Gauff first entered the international spotlight at the tender age of 15, when she stunned Venus Williams at Wimbledon. But her career was never just about forehands and trophies. Gauff quickly proved she was as much a force off the court as she was on it. Whether it was kneeling in support of racial justice, speaking out for mental health awareness, or advocating for gender equality and prize money, Gauff never stayed silent when it mattered. She wasn't simply playing tennis. She was changing the narrative of what it meant to be a young female athlete in the 21st century. As she climbed the WTA rankings and racked up titles, including her memorable win at the U.S. Open, Gauff's voice only grew louder, steadier, and more impactful. Her advocacy became a beacon for millions of girls watching from the sidelines, dreaming of breaking into the sport, not just to win, but to stand for something bigger. Zverev's unexpected tribute. Zverev's admiration didn't come out of nowhere. Known for his reserved demeanor, the German star isn't usually one to make bold proclamations. But he'd been watching Gauff closely, not just her athletic evolution, but her public presence. "I see a lot of courage in her," he later told Tennis Now in a sit-down interview. In a sport where players are often trained to speak only in cliches and keep things safe, she's willing to be honest. She's young, but her leadership is very mature. According to Zverev, Gauff's influence transcended tennis. When Coco speaks, people listen. She's inspiring girls to pick up rackets, yes, but she's also inspiring them to raise their voices. And that's rare. That's powerful. In a world where female athletes are often asked to shrink themselves, Gauff has done the opposite. And Zverev, like many others, took notice. The ripple effect, girls who dare. In the weeks following Zverev's comments, social media buzzed with renewed admiration for Coco. Young athletes across the globe shared stories of how Gauff had inspired them, not just to play harder, but to live louder. One viral video featured a 10-year-old girl from Kenya holding a tennis racket and delivering a message to Gauff. "Coco, I saw you speak at the protest in 2020. I didn't know girls could do that and play tennis too. Now I believe I can do both." That belief, that you don't have to choose between being an athlete and being an activist, is perhaps Gauff's most enduring contribution. Coco's response. When told of Zverev's comments, Gauff was visibly moved. "It means a lot," she said during a press conference at the Cincinnati Open. "We don't always get that kind of support from the men's side of the sport. So hearing that from someone like Sasha, it reminds me that what we're doing matters. Not just for women, but for the sport as a whole." She smiled softly, clearly touched. Tennis is better when we lift each other up. It wasn't the first time Gauff had received recognition from her peers, but this moment felt different. It wasn't about competition. It was about solidarity. Allies in the arena. Zverev's remarks seemed to spark a wave of similar support from other male athletes. Stefanos Tsitsipas tweeted, "Coco's voice is refreshing and necessary. Proud to share the sport with someone so fearless." Novak Djokovic, during a press briefing, added, "She's not just winning matches, she's shaping culture." These acknowledgments, though seemingly small, marked a shift. In a landscape where women's sports are still fighting for equal coverage, funding, and respect, endorsements from high-profile men carry weight. They shift perceptions, encourage conversations, and, most importantly, inspire action. Beyond the baseline, the Gauff Foundation. Behind the scenes, Coco Gauff has also been laying the foundation, literally and figuratively, for change. Her foundation, Serve for Change, focuses on creating opportunities for young girls in underserved communities through sport and education. Empowerment doesn't stop at a tennis clinic. Gauff explained during the foundation's launch. It's about giving girls the tools to believe in themselves, whether they become athletes, scientists, or storytellers. The foundation partners with schools and youth centers, providing equipment, mentorship, and workshops that focus on leadership and mental wellness. Already active in several U.S. cities, Gauff plans to expand it internationally in the coming years. A new era of visibility. Thanks in part to athletes like Coco, women's sports are entering a new age of visibility. The WNBA, NWSL, and women's tennis have seen unprecedented growth in viewership. Brands are investing. Media is paying attention. Young girls no longer have to search for role models. They're front and center. Zverev's public praise didn't start this movement, but it added something essential to it: validation from across the aisle. It's not just about women supporting women anymore. Gauff reflected in an interview. It's about all of us, men, women, everyone, supporting what's right. A historic photo. At the 2025 U.S. Open, something remarkable happened. After both winning their respective matches on Arthur Ashe Stadium, Zverev and Gauff crossed paths near the tunnel. Cameras caught the moment. Gauff, sweat still on her brow, fist-bumping Zverev with a grateful smile. No words were exchanged, but the gesture spoke volumes. That photo, shared millions of times online, has come to symbolize a quiet but powerful alliance. One that transcends titles, rankings, and headlines. One that says, "We see you. We support you." Keep going. Final rally, what the future holds. Coco Gauff is just getting started. With each swing of her racket and each statement she makes, she's reshaping what it means to be a woman in sport. She's proving that you can be both dominant and dignified, competitive and compassionate. And now, thanks to voices like Zverev's echoing her efforts, the path she's blazing is becoming a road many will follow. Young girls, fellow athletes, and even the stars of men's tennis. So when history looks back on this era of tennis, it may well remember the slams, the rallies, the rivalries. But it will also remember this: the moment a young woman from Delray Beach stood tall, and the world, including her peers, stood with her.